The internet is completely busted, but it's even more busted than most people realize. And it's in ways that I didn't even understand about 4 years ago when I first kind of fell down this rabbit hole. So, this idea is to help explain what in the world Urbit is, why you might be interested in it, and how it might be able to help you. But in order to do that, we have to back up a little bit and look at some of the problems that it's solving and also why other solutions are not addressing all of the issues like Urbit does. So, to start, the internet, the protocols that govern the internet were created basically over a weekend back in the 1970s. And some of those technological decisions that were made back then are directly responsible for a lot of the problems and issues that we are experiencing right now with the internet that we might think are problems with governing communities or misinformation. And those kind of higher level problems actually have much lower technological sources. Those are the roots of the the leaves and branches of these problems that most people are saying these platforms need to solve. So the idea is um, it's actually really difficult to authenticate identity online. If you look at it from a personal standpoint, you know your friends, you've hung out in meet space with them, you know what they look like, you've grown up together, you have a lot of shared experience, and it's almost so simple as to be stupid, but when you walk up to them, you know it's them. When they say it's them, you can clearly authenticate, yes, this is the correct person that I'm talking to. When you're online, however, it's actually really tough to know that that's the person you're really talking to. And one of the issues for that is the way that my computer talks to your computer is that my computer has an IP address provided by my internet service provider, and there are functionally infinite IP addresses. So that's why, how do I know that that IP address is connected to you? So that authenticating identity, that verifying that it's actually you that I'm talking to, is a really difficult challenge to solve. So the main method of solving that is a company has its own server farm, and it allows you to create a profile and a password to verify that yes, this really is you. And then that gives you the ability to share your information, make posts, send messages, but you're not actually sending messages to people. You're writing to that row in the database. So, in the effort of being able to verify identity, you're giving up all of your data and information because this other company is going through the hassle of keeping these computers up and running because it takes an entire team and an entire army of computer engineers to defend these servers from hackers and infinite number of bots and crawlers and all that kind of thing because IP addresses again are functionally infinite. So somebody could spool up thousands or millions of fake entities and request information from these servers, and therefore it's overloaded with these requests for information, and now the legitimate request from you can't get through. So you can see why just the fact of near infinite IP addresses causes a lot of issues from identity verification to serving information to spam and DDoS, denial or distributed denial of service attacks and that kind of thing. So you can see that just this one element of the internet has caused a lot of issues, that the solutions to those issues are centralized, centrally controlled, databases that you, the user, don't own. They're not your servers, it's not your network, it's not even your identity. Interesting detail is as of a couple of days ago from the time that I'm recording this, uh, Twitter went through the rebrand and it is now called X. And the person with the username X was offering that username for $1 million. They were going to sell it for $1 million. And instead, X just said, hey, you don't have this handle anymore. You can pick something that's available, but we own X now. So that person didn't even own their username. So if you had that as your brand, you're just out of luck because the people who own the server, the computer, can do whatever they want with the data. And that username was just uh, a cell in that database. So if it's not your computer, it's not your server, it's not your network, it's not your identity. And the people who do own it control it. So that's why if you want a better social media experience, you have to own your own server and you have to own your own name, and that is not an easy thing to do. So that's why Urbit is reinventing the way that the personal server works. And in order to have a new kind of internet, you do need that new server. And to have a new server, you need a new kind of computer. And to have a new computer, you need new computer language. And Urbit is handling all of those elements all at the same time. So that's why it's really difficult to explain what in the world Urbit is, because it is so many things all at the same time, because it has to be that deep in the technology stack if you really want to solve the issues that it's looking to address. So in a super, super short introduction to Urbit, you have a username, and there are only 4.2 billion usernames, and they're all locked and they're verified by an NFT. So whoever holds the NFT holds the keys to that identity. Mine is Minderfolden, and that's my name, and it's also my address that your Urbit would use to get in touch with me. So if you know my name, Minderfolden, you could send me a DM, you could chat with me, you could talk to me, and it is my name, it's my identity, and it's my address. So instead of having an IP address, Minderfolden is the address. The Minderfolden is the way to pronounce what kind of decodes to a very specific number address on the Urbit network. So your Urbit is an ID and it's a server and it's your address. It's everything all rolled into one. And instead of it just being a profile, it's an entire computer that also talks to other computers, which makes it a server. But the cool thing about it being a computer is that you can program for it. Has its own programming language, and whatever kind of program or app you could dream of, you can program it on your own Urbit. And they allow you to distribute your app however you want. And people can run the code and it runs locally on theirs. And then that's how it's a truly distributed software platform. Now, some of the programs that are already built for it enable you to run groups that could be public on the network. Anybody could find it, anybody could join it. There are kind of private groups where anybody could find it, but they need to ask for admission. And then there are secret groups where you have to be invited to even know about it in the first place. And I have a secret group, I have a public group. You can run multiple groups. You could have a book study group, you could have an archery group, you could have a secret Dungeons and Dragon group just for your friends to play online. So it's a great tool for building a network with all of your friends who each have their own Urbit, and my Urbit talks to your Urbit, and there's nobody between. So it's a true peer to peer network so that we aren't relying on anybody else to stay in touch. Because if we were on Facebook or Twitter and I send you a message, again, I'm not sending you a message, I'm writing to somebody else's server, and then your browser is authenticating with your username and password to be able to read the data in that row on that server. And that data belongs to Facebook, it belongs to Twitter. It's not our conversation. So anybody with the right access at that company could see everything that we are saying to each other. So not even for nefarious purposes, entire relationships have started and been built this way. And all of that is open to some third person who's always in the room, so to speak, in all of your conversations with everybody that you're friends with. So that kind of access to your data is what allows all the advertisers to show you ads for things that you're talking about. And that kind of surveillance capitalism and leveraging your own metadata against you, the only way out is to opt out of using other people's servers. And the only solution is to own and run your own server that only talks to the people that you want to talk to. And that's why exit is possible on Urbit and not on Facebook or Twitter. Because even though you can request your data from Facebook, you can download your archive from Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Uh, sure, you've got all of your data now, and so do they still. And now that you have it, do you have the framework to use the data that you downloaded? What are you going to do with it? It's not in any format or shape that you'll be able to leverage. You don't have their infrastructure, so you can't make use of the data. So the idea of, oh yeah, you can just download all your information and you'll be fine, well, you can't use it to stay in touch with the people who are still on Twitter. You can't use it to stay in touch with the people who are still on Facebook. So, running your own server that manages your own data, that keeps your own data forever forward, that's the only way that you can build communities and networks that somebody else has no ability to shut down or say you're not supposed to talk to that person. Now, this all of this is why Urbit is the only viable solution that's addressing every step of the way, from identity to the computer, instead of just a profile, to managing it yourself, to building a network that's direct peer to peer. um, Other Web3 companies are working on specific angles of this issue. This project is working on authenticating identity on the Ethereum blockchain. Okay, but what do I do with it? Okay, now we have to build a whole other system that talks to the blockchain. And now we're stuck at the, well, we still need a server to talk to each other. And now you're incorporating more and more complexity. So the deeper you dive into these issues, the more you understand how you have to build it from the ground up. You've got to use your own programming language to create your own computer that talks to other computers like it, that has identity baked in at the most fundamental level. You begin to see that this giant, ambitious project that is Urbit again, is the only approach that is covering all the bases comprehensively in one coherent approach. Everything else is relying on too many external factors and dependencies for it to be a robust, um, workable solution in the near and long term. So, this has been my rambling introduction to why Urbit is important, what problems it's solving, and why it's the only one that is solving it. If you have any other questions or comments or concerns, I would love to see what else you would like to know so that I can make more videos like this that kind of walk you through what it is you need to understand about Urbit and why you might be interested in using it. I love helping people get on the network. There are multiple companies that are helping people do this, and they're doing it in a way where your data stays yours, even if you'd like to exit their service of hosting your server for you. You still leave with all of your data, your identity, and all of your connections intact. So let me know what you want to know. I'll make more videos like this, and I will see you in the next one. In the meantime, if you are on the network, head over to minderfolden/antichamber for my public kind of front doorstep group where you can request access to my secret group. That's it for now. Have a good one and see you later.